Hi, this is Bob Weir with another interview of notable people in South Carolina. This is my second interview with Jeff Brown, a retired Command Sergeant Major in the Army and president of Vets Helping Vets Greenville, a 501c3 nonprofit in Greenville County whose mission is to serve, support, and solve the issues that our underserved veterans and families of veterans encounter. Excuse me. Thanks for being here, Jeff.
Thank you.
In the first interview we did about a month ago, we concentrated on the organization that you are president of. I wanted you to hear for another interview to ask about some of the experiences you had in your military career. So why don't we begin by telling the viewers what are the duties of a Command Sergeant Major?
Okay, Bob. A Command Sergeant Major is the senior enlisted advisor for a commander at the battalion level and higher. So you have a lieutenant colonel or general officer. They have their senior enlisted advisor, who is his Command Sergeant Major. The Command Sergeant Major provides that knowledge of the enlisted life and acts as an advisor when commanders are making those decisions that will affect the enlisted soldier and can bring that experience level and the enlisted background into the thought process for the commander.
And I'm looking at some of the fruit salad on your chest. That's a lot of those that represent what?
All sorts of different awards and decorations.
There are various medals and commendations.
Some are for service, some are just for campaign medals. You know, for instance, Operation Desert Storm, you got several medals for that one, just for going there.
Yeah.
So yeah, just all sorts of different medals for over the years.
And from 1984 to 87, you were an infantry scout stationed in West Berlin, and you conducted patrols along the Berlin Wall. What was that like?
That was very interesting. Being on a mission that has national security implications, our primary function for the Wall Patrol was a presence patrol to show the West Berliners that the American Army was there, and we were there to protect them against Soviet aggression in the city. We would drive along the Berlin Wall in the American sector, which is the southern west portion of Berlin, and just drive along and be there in case there was a sensitive situation that required American involvement, and just to show the West Berliners that America was dedicated to their freedom.
Yeah. And you were also part of a briefing with President Reagan on Wall Patrol procedures, right? That happened right after he gave his tear down the wall speech?
That's right, Bob. Right after he came back from Brandenburg Gate and giving that speech, we set up a static display, and he and the First Lady Nancy came by and walked to each one of us, and we introduced ourselves, explained what our duty was on the Wall Patrol. And President Reagan actually engaged me in a little bit of a conversation because I had mentioned that I was from Colorado, and so there was something going on at that time. So he talked to me for probably about 30 seconds to a minute about home and everything else. Very interesting time.
Oh, I'll bet. That had to be quite a thrill. That was a wonderful time in our country during the Reagan administration, and I think we're about to see that again, yeah. If I may tell people my own preference, I think we're going to see that again with President Trump.
I like to joke about that and say that it's kind of like meeting Abraham Lincoln after he gave the Gettysburg Address.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, these are historic times. Please tell us about the time you served on the border between North and South Korea and conducted many combat patrols in the DMZ.
Right. I was stationed in an organization or unit known as the Joint Security Force Company of the Joint Security Area. The Joint Security Area is the area in the Korean DMZ that surrounds the peace village of Panmunjom. So we had a multi-level mission there. One of them was to be in the village of Panmunjom and protect against aggression from North Korean troops on the other side of the village. It's a village that's split right down the center. North Koreans stay on their north side, and the South Koreans and the American Army stayed on the south side. We would be responsible for securing the conference room whenever there was a tour that would come up, because they do actually have tours that go up to Panmunjom. So we would secure the conference room and then post security outside on Conference Row and in the guard towers around the village. Another important part of that mission was to control or patrol the DMZ. We would conduct reconnaissance and ambush patrols in the American sector or the United Nations sector of the DMZ. I led 46 combat patrols in that year that I was there. A very interesting time, and again, at that, still to this day, you know, the North Koreans do send infiltration teams through the DMZ trying to get into the South. And there were rumors, I don't know if they're true or not, but that the North Korean Special Forces used to send their graduates try to get through the DMZ as part of a graduation exercise. So it was very interesting.
And it's like a demarcation line, right? It's like,
Yes.
it separates the two.
It was approximately a mile from the southern edge of the DMZ to Panmunjom. And so we had a sector that was probably, I'm going to say about 25 square kilometers that we were responsible patrolling in.
I remember seeing President Trump walk across that line with, during his
Yeah.
first tour. You were also part of the 82nd Airborne Division and served on 4 combat deployments: Desert Storm, 2 tours in Iraq, and 1 tour in Afghanistan. Now, we don't have a lot of time, but can you tell us a few things about what is that like?
Well, each one of them was a little bit different. When you talk about Desert Storm compared to the Operation Iraqi Freedom, completely different scenario altogether. We were rolled out early August of 1990 to go over and, you know, basically draw the line in the sand that President Bush talked about in Saudi Arabia. We spent several months in Saudi Arabia waiting for the war to begin, which didn't start until February of that year. Actually, the ground portion of it anyway. And we spent a lot of time preparing for combat, training, and then when the war started, my organization, we flew in by helicopter, and our original mission, which was to set up a battalion-sized anti-armor ambush, did not happen because the ground forces moved so quickly. So we were diverted to an area south of Nasiriyah, where we conducted bunker clearing operations for several days, and then ceasefire occurred, and we just basically stood our ground and, you know, watched as POWs were moving back and forth until we were pulled out. Iraq, during the most recent conflict, it was a whole different operation altogether, much more fast speed and vehicle mounted and you know, moving around, clearing buildings and things like that. Afghanistan, a whole different operation altogether too, because you're dealing in mountains and a lot more territory to cover.
You got some experience there. I'm telling you. I also want to mention you served as a drill sergeant and an instructor at the U.S. Army Airborne School, and there's a picture of you a few years ago as a drill instructor.
I'm sure there's some grown men out there today that would probably cry if they saw that picture.
And I'll have a few other photos online when I can get this posted. I want to also quickly mention a little about your father and your son are combat infantrymen. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
3 generations of combat infantrymen. My father was an infantry officer, served 2 tours of duty in Vietnam, was awarded the Bronze Star for Valor. His big claim, well, the thing that he was most proud of, and this is one of those dividing line situations, but I don't know if you remember the My Lai massacre and the trial of Lieutenant William Calley. My father was on the jury. And because of that, I did a lot of research on that entire situation and understood how poor leadership and bad situations can lead to very bad things in a combat environment. So I was able to take Dad's knowledge and transform it into something that I could use with my soldiers, particularly going into Afghanistan, knowing that we would be facing some of the same situations that soldiers in Vietnam did, where you didn't know who was friend or enemy. And I was able to take that and partake that on my soldiers to understand that, you know, you just can't lose your mind on some things. My son is currently on active duty. He was just promoted to Master Sergeant. He is teaching ROTC right now at Virginia Tech. And I'm very proud of that young man. He was actually with the 82nd when they went into Kabul a couple of years ago for the evacuation mission. Jeremy was on the first plane into Kabul on that mission, and he was on the last plane that flew out. And he, in fact, was the soldier that lowered the American flag at the control tower and brought it back on the plane to get it back home.
Jeff, it's really a pleasure knowing you, meeting you, and God bless you and your family and the service that you've given to this country. it's something that I always admired, and I think most Americans do admire the soldier because of what you've done to help this country and to provide us with the freedom. I want to thank you for being here again, Jeff.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you so much, and thank you for watching.